Hello, humanoids! Halfling Hannah here with your DM trick of the day. So have you noticed that maybe your sessions have been falling kind of flat lately? Maybe players are distracted or combat's a little bit boring. Things just aren't quite going the way that you, expected them to. You had all of these amazing ideas and incredible encounters and it was going to be amazing, and then everyone ended up on their phone. What happened? Well, today I'm coming at you with 10 reasons why your sessions keep falling flat. Number 1, a lack of planning. Maybe you're one of those DMs who likes to, fly by the seat of your pants. Whatever happens, happens. It's going to be an incredible adventure and I'm just along for the ride. Yeah, that's not quite how it works. If you aren't planning anything, then there's a really good chance that your sessions are just gonna fall flat. DM kitty. Mwah. So, you as the DM have to do at least a little bit of planning. First of all, you need to know the world that your players are in better than your players do. This means that you need to know what monsters they're likely to encounter in the area, how people are likely to treat them, what races are common or uncommon, nearby cities and towns, the history of the area, possible side quests that they could take on, and any dungeons, castles, or dragon lairs maybe that might be in the area. Now, I'm not saying you have to have all of these fully fleshed out and perfectly planned. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous even for me, and I am a planner. What I am saying is that you need to at least have these things. 1, a list of possible NPCs they could encounter, including their shops and their homes. Now, this list could be used later on too. So if your players don't interact with an NPC and you still have them, then you can just use that in a later session. It's one of those prep and done type things. And then when you run out, you make some more. This ensures that you're never caught off guard trying to decide, what kind of NPC might be here. You encounter a human who's happy to see you. That can make sessions fall flat. You also need to make sure that you have a list of possible side quests. Again, they don't have to be fully fleshed out, but you need to have a few. If you don't know how to do this, make sure you check out halflinghobbies.com for a full guide on how to make epic side quests. Then you need to have some monsters available. These monsters should be regional specific so that if you happen to roll for a random encounter, then you have something ready as opposed to panic searching online. And then finally, you need at least one pre-generated dungeon or castle of your choice. I generate these, map and everything, and then I keep it until my players discover it. Once I've used it, I create another one to keep on hand just in case something like this happens. These few preparations will ensure that your sessions aren't falling flat because of your lack of preparation. Now, this doesn't mean that players don't have choice. Of course they still have choice. It just gives you some resources available for quick offhand things that maybe aren't on plot or on your main storyline. Number 2, lack of descriptions. If your descriptions are kind of lackluster, it's entirely possible your players are just going to stop caring about them entirely and your sessions are going to fall flat. Your descriptions need to be vivid. They need to include smells and sights and sounds and tastes. And I'm not saying have the halfling lick the desk, although you could. I mean, the schnozberries could taste like schnozberries. But you do need to include as many sensory details as possible, because that's what our brains are wired to be about. We love sensory details. We love to smell things and taste things and sense things beyond just hearing. So if your descriptions aren't quite there, then maybe you should work on that. That might be why the sessions are falling flat. Some different areas that you might need to watch your description for are combat. Is your combat description sound something like this? I cast magic missile, 17 to hit. Yep, that hits. Go ahead and roll damage. I rolled an 8. Yep, he's dead. Jason, your turn. As you can imagine, that can get really tedious as a player when you're doing about 2 hours of that per combat. It's just not interesting. It just won't hold their attention, and you better believe that Crossy Roads is coming out. But, on the other hand, if your descriptions sound more like this, I cast Magic Missile, 17 to hit. As you weave your arcane symbol in the air, concentrating your aura, you release a burst of green energy that crisscrosses through the battlefield and hits the orc. Go ahead and roll damage. I rolled an 8. You watch as the orc is blasted and goes tumbling through the air, leaving a huge gaping wound in his chest. He stands there for a moment, looking at the wound, and then falls forward, hitting the ground, dead. Now that description really didn't take much longer than the first version, but how much better was that? As a player, I would be interested in that, even if it wasn't me that did the damage, and that's the important part. The important part is to make your players feel like heroes, even when they're just killing an orc band that maybe they came across. It's much more important that they feel heroic and that your descriptions sound heroic than that they're necessarily doing something totally unique. You also need to watch your NPC descriptions and your descriptions of the world. These should be engaging and interesting, and every time they come to a new place, they should be filled with wonder at your description of it. What I like to do is I like to know where my players might end up and write out a description of what that might look like so that I don't forget something and I can just read it off if I get too nervous. It's an excellent way to decide how to do that. And also on my NPC list that I talked about before, of course there's a description page on there. I can just read that off too. And it goes a long way to making sure my sessions don't fall flat because I'm struggling to describe the world and my players are struggling to picture it. Descriptions are king in Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, almost the entire game is done in theater of the mind. It's about the player's collective imagination. If you aren't feeding that imagination and giving them something to latch onto and to understand, your sessions are just gonna fall flat. Next up, for number 3, we have too much mystery or not enough. Now, of course, we want our campaigns to be filled with mysteries that the players have to solve and unwind and deep plots that go throughout. But if you are so secretive and you play your cards so close to your chest that your players have no idea what's happening or what's going on, they're just gonna lose interest and your sessions are gonna start falling flat. On the other hand, if everything is super cut and dry and it's just go fight these people and kill this thing, well, that's not interesting either. There needs to be a good balance of mystery, and if you find that your party just isn't picking up on your subtle hints, try being a bit more obvious. Trust me, you're likely never too obvious. Next of all, your sessions could be falling flat because number 4, no player choice. Now, I'm a fan of a good railroad as much as anyone else. Sometimes it's just downright necessary. But if you are constantly railroading your players and they know it, they are not going to be interested in being a part of your story. They feel like playthings, not heroes in their own epic quest. You have to allow for player choice, or at least the illusion of choice. So if you are not giving your players the chance to make a difference in your story and to write their own, then your sessions are going to fall flat. Number 5, lack of visuals. Now, I did say that the majority of the campaign is played in theater of the mind, which means a collective imagination. But sometimes it's just downright necessary to have some visuals, whether that's a map, miniatures, or something else. There are times when players simply can't visualize what you're talking about. Combat with multiple monsters is an excellent example of this. If you don't have visuals, players are going to get confused, they're not going to understand what's going on or what their options are, and they're likely going to get distracted by something else. You need to make sure that your players understand their options, understand where everything is located, and have some visuals when it's necessary. Number 6? 6. Pretty sure it's 6. Number 6, little player-to-player interactions. While players should be interacting with you quite a bit because, you're God, they need to interact with one another. If they aren't comfortable, if they don't feel safe, and they don't trust one another, they're not going to interact with one another. And this can lead to very flat sessions. Players need to interact with one another and role play. If you are doing too much combat and not allowing this, or if the players don't trust each other and aren't doing it, then your sessions are guaranteed to fall flat. Number 7. Misunderstanding your players' values and expectations. Now, we all have a story to tell. That's why we're DMs. We love it. It's so much fun. But your players have a story to tell too. And if you forget that, and you only focus on your story, you forget their values, what they want, what they're expecting, then they're going to lose interest and your sessions are going to fall flat. You have to know your players. You have to know your party. One party could love going around just killing things because they want to feel awesome. Another party could be more interested in role play and they'd rather have diplomatic missions or infiltration missions or things like that where they can be sneaky and talk their way out of things. If you are running a campaign for murder hobos, like you would run a campaign for role players, then, or vice versa, then it's going to fall flat. It just is. It's not what they want. It's not what they value. It's not what they expect, and it's going to be bad. So, make sure you know your players. Make sure you know what they want and that you've talked about it and you've set clear expectations. That'll go a long way in making sure that your sessions don't fall flat. Number 8. It's entirely possible that you are perfect. You are an amazing DM. You come up with epic descriptions and encounters and battles and NPCs and it's just incredible and your players suck. That's possible. Players get distracted. I mean, they're people, and sometimes if they're more interested in their character than other people's characters, this can be really easy to just happen. If your players are being distracted, it might be time to sit down for a rules meeting. Here are some rules for your rules meeting, though. Number 1, you are not the all-knowing imposer of rules. Now, surely, of course, I know that you know best, but your players may have some doubts. Your players should be the ones to come up with the rules. You should be the one mitigating it. This means that you simply state, hey, we have a problem. I've been noticing this. How can we fix it? And your players come up with the rules for the table. This is important because if you don't do this, they won't have any interest in actually following those rules. You'll just feel like some dictator and they'll want to rebel even more. If they come up with the rules, then it's theirs. They can own it and they'll be more interested in keeping them. Number 2, don't call people out. As much as you want to just go on that rant and tell that person who's on their phone all the time what for, you can't do that. This will lead to hurt feelings and likely your party collapsing. You can state problems without calling people out. This becomes very important. And then number 3, you need to be specific with your rules. Just saying, okay, no more distractions. Well, what's a distraction for your group? It's different for all different kinds. So you need to be specific in exactly what your rules are going to be and how you're going to maintain them. Some possible player distractions could be phones, food, though mostly just for us halflings, we do love our food a little too much, side conversations, whether they're in-game or out of game, rules arguing, talking over each other, reading, Knitting or crocheting, strange as it sounds, definitely can be a distraction. And telling stories about other campaigns. And while this sometimes is fun occasionally, you might get that one bard who just can't let go of the past and has to bring up a story every single time you do something. If that's the case, you might want to have a conversation with them. And then number 10. Did I skip one? I feel like I skipped one. Number 10, party dynamics. In the end, if you've done everything that you can and your sessions just are still falling flat, you might need to look at your players around the table. Is there a person who is a constant distraction regardless of how many times you ask them to stop? Is there someone who just makes other people uncomfortable or dominates conversations and never lets anyone do anything? If you have one of these party members and it's hurting your session again and again, it might be time to let them go. Now, I want to be very clear here. Do not kill their character and hope that everything turns out okay. You need to have a direct conversation with them. As terrifying as this can be for some of you, just having a conversation is the best way. Have one other person there for accountability so that no one can say, who said what said. But just tell them, hey, I've really appreciated having you at the table, but I just don't think this is the group for you. And essentially, fire that party member. It can be hard in that moment, but I guarantee the next time you have a session and everyone feels free and they're talking and things are going so much better, you'll be really glad that you went ahead and did that. So there you go. 10 reasons, I'm pretty sure there were 10 reasons why your sessions keep falling flat. If you notice that your sessions just aren't what they could be, try looking at these and deciding if maybe one of these is the reason why. If you need more help, tips, tricks, head on over to halflinghobby.com to see food, drinks, crafts, and DM tips and tricks to get your game rolling with advantage. Until next time, may your game have advantage, my friends. Halfling Hannah, signing out.